Hello, and welcome back to Terri Reid's Attic, a place where we share stories of things that go bump in the night. Sit back, get comfortable, and enjoy the stories. Remember, if you have personal ghost stories you'd like to share with the listeners of Terri Reid's Attic, check out the information below this video. So, welcome back to my house and the crazy happenings within it. These following stories happened to other members of my family. The first one happened to my son, the one who had so many encounters with Grandma Molnick's. My son had come home from college for the weekend. He had enjoyed several days of visiting with both family and friends, although his last visit with friends had ended up much longer and later than he had planned, which was why he was struggling to get out of bed well past his usual time. He made his way to the bathroom down the hall from his bedroom. A few moments later, he heard the bathroom doorknob rattle. "Hey, I'm in here," he called to whichever sibling must still be home. "Use the downstairs bathroom." But instead of going downstairs, whoever was on the other side of the door started to hum. "That's annoying," my son informed his sibling. "Stop it." But the humming continued and even increased. "That is not going to make me come out of here any sooner," he called. The humming continued. "Knock it off," he yelled, feeling his patience ebb, "and go downstairs." The humming persisted. Now he was really upset. He quickly finished, grabbed hold of the doorknob, and yanked the door open. No one was in the hallway. He assumed that the prankster must have run downstairs when he heard movement on the other side of the door. "I'm gonna find you," he threatened. He hurried downstairs. No one was there. He went back up to the bedrooms. They were empty. Finally, he called me at my office. "Mom, who stayed home from school today?" he asked. "No one," I replied. "No, someone's here at the house," he insisted. "Nope, I drove everyone to school," I replied. "There's no one home but you. Why?" Standing at the foot of the stairs to the second floor, he heard a soft chuckle, followed by a hum, and felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. "Nothing, Mom," he replied slowly. "I'm gonna go back to school now." "Oh, I thought you were gonna stay home and sleep in," I said. Yeah, I think it's better that I go now," he said, stepping away from the staircase and picking up his overnight bag. The humming stopped, the upstairs bathroom door creaked, and he finished his conversation with me and hurried out of the house. As my children have gotten older, one of the new traditions we have during the holidays is the drive out to Idaho to take them back to college. Since we have family in Idaho and Utah, we take this opportunity to meet with them and catch up. We have been lucky enough in the last few years to have someone stay at our house to take care of the dogs, cats, and chickens. One year, one of my older sons volunteered to take care of our home. We actually put the dogs in a kennel because he was working in a nearby town and couldn't get home to let them out often enough. But he promised he would stop by and feed the chickens and cats every day. For some reason, we decided to leave in the evening hours, and my son and his girlfriend came by to see us off. He had been teasing his girlfriend about the ghosts we had in the house, and he thought he'd be able to spook her. So once we were on the road, he turned off the lights in the house, locked the back door, and then stood in the front hallway with her. "I'll see if the ghosts will do something for you," he said to her. "That's okay." "Really?" she replied. "No, it'll be fun," he said. Then he turned and called back into the darkened house. "Hey, ghosts, why don't you show yourselves? Why don't you do something? Come on, I'm not afraid." Suddenly, there was a sound like a bowling ball dropped from a closet shelf onto the floor in one of the upstairs bedrooms. Problem is, we don't have a bowling ball. Then the kitchen light turned on and off several times. After that, a shadowy figure floated past the doorway in front of them that led to the living room. My son, pushing his girlfriend behind him to protect her, rushed her to the front door and out to the safety of the dark night. He locked the front door and made sure he didn't look back into any of the darkened windows. for fear of what he might see. For the next 10 days, he came to take care of the cats and chickens, but he made sure it was in broad daylight. He arrived at the house soon after we got home and told us about his experience. Being good parents, we sympathized with him and agreed it must have been frightening. Although, we had to acknowledge, they did exactly what he asked them to do. What's the old saying? Be careful what you wish for. We have a cute sign on the wall next to the front staircase, and it reads, "Remember, as far as anyone knows, we are a nice, normal family." I've often thought that I ought to create a smaller sign and hang it right underneath that would say, "Just please ignore the ghost." However, quite frankly, some of our visitors have found our ghost hard to ignore. I don't know what it is about certain people. They seem to bring out the extra in our normally introverted specters. One summer afternoon, the entire family was visiting in the living room. My husband's dear mother was visiting with us, and we were all sharing stories. The dogs and cats were sprawled throughout the room, either insisting on attention or taking naps. Suddenly, we heard footsteps above us, loud enough to have all of the conversation in the room stop. We listened and followed the sounds from the front bedroom across the hall into the middle bedroom. Everyone in the room knew that no one else was home. I went up the front staircase, and my husband went up the rear staircase. Of course, there was no one there. Another time, my son invited a friend to spend the night. They both stayed up way too late and had decided to sleep on the couches in the living room. The next morning, his friend relayed his spooky experience. He had been sleeping soundly when suddenly he woke up, feeling strange. The room was dark. We live in the country, so there are no streetlights to illuminate the night. He looked out until his eyes adjusted to the dark, and he could make out the various pieces of furniture in the room. A movement, a slight flash, caught his eye, and he turned to look at the coffee table about 6 feet away from the couch. In the middle of the coffee table were his car keys that he had put down earlier that evening. In heart-stopping amazement, he watched as his car keys slowly moved themselves across the table and finally landed with a crash onto the floor. He told us he thought about the keys and he thought about what moved them. Then he just said, "Nope," laid back down and pulled the covers up over his head. Finally, my favorite story, and the one that prompted me to write this episode. My son-in-law has always had a polite but slightly skeptical view of ghosts. He's heard some things when visiting us, but was always able to use his brilliant engineering brain to explain it all away. We had the pleasure of having their family stay with us before they had to return out west to college. On the last night of their stay, with most of their things packed and loaded in a trailer, they spent the night on the pull-out couch in the living room. Because of packing and organizing, my son-in-law was up much later than everyone else. It was past midnight when he finally clicked off the side lamp and put his head on the pillow. But about a half hour later, he was awake and bothered by something. He turned his head and looked toward the kitchen. There, standing next to the kitchen door, was a man, looking back at him. The man was the same height as my husband, and for a moment, he thought my husband had come downstairs for something. But the man wasn't moving. Keeping his eyes on the figure, he reached behind himself for his phone. But when he shone the phone flashlight in the direction of the man had disappeared. The next morning, when I got up to wish them all well on their travels, he told me the story. He said he really would have preferred remaining skeptical, but now there was no way he could deny the existence of ghosts. Yep, we're just a nice, normal family. A couple of summers ago, my daughter and her 2-year-old son spent a couple of months with us. And because there was a little one in the house again, Grandma Molnix or some other ghost was more active. One morning, when I was up in my office, my daughter and grandson came upstairs to visit me. "Mom," she asked, "were you just downstairs in the kitchen?" I shook my head. "Nope, I've been writing," I replied. "Where's Dad?" she asked. "He left about 30 minutes ago to run a couple of errands," I said. She didn't respond for a long moment. "Why?" I finally asked. She sighed. "Because a few minutes ago I was in the living room and I heard someone moving around in the kitchen," she said. "I thought it must have been you, and I even called out and asked you a question. But when I got up to see you, no one was there." "What did it sound like?" "Footsteps on the kitchen floor," she said. "The floor creaking like it does when someone's walking on it." I shrugged and smiled. "Maybe somebody wanted breakfast," I teased. She shook her head. "This house is weird. Floors, creaks, footsteps, thumps. What is it about ghosts and floors?" Finally, the last story in this series of family ghost stories is one of the reasons why I call this YouTube page Terri Reid's Attic. Of course, I've already shared my attic experience, but this attic experience happened to my son, a son who rarely had paranormal experiences, unlike many of his siblings. One night, my son decided to use the privacy of my office to have a FaceTime conversation with his girlfriend. He was sitting in my large office chair with his feet on my desk facing the attic window. There was a light above my desk and another light on behind him. It was pretty late, so most of the family was downstairs on the first floor. He and his girlfriend were having a fairly heated discussion about their relationship, which is why he wanted privacy. Suddenly, mid-discussion, she stopped and demanded, "Who is up in the attic with you?" "No one," he replied adamantly. "Everyone's downstairs." She was very quiet for a moment and then whispered, "I just saw the shadow of something walk behind you." My son felt a chill crawl up his spine, and he slowly turned around in the chair. The attic was empty. "Listen, I'll call you back in a few minutes," he said, his voice tight. "Yeah, good," she replied, her voice strained. Good idea." Terri Reid's Attic, where the fun just keeps on coming. Thank you for stopping by Terri Reid's Attic. If you enjoyed the stories, please click like and please subscribe. And please look below for links and more videos. Until next time, from ghoulies and ghosties and long-legged beasties and things that go bump in the night, dear Lord, protect us.